Have you ever wondered what happens when someone you underestimated turns out to hold all the power? Imagine this: a janitor mocked, belittled, and treated as invisible, silently carries the weight of a secret that could shake the very foundation of those who sneer at her. This is a story of justice, resilience, and a hidden identity that will leave you questioning everything. Behind every closed door, behind every dismissive glance, lies a truth waiting to explode. This is the story of Evelyn Carter, the woman who turned the tables on a broken system. And it all began with a mop, a uniform, and a quiet smile. The harsh fluorescent lights of the Brooklyn branch of Carter Collective buzzed softly as the management team gathered near the staff lounge. Evelyn Carter, clad in a plain janitor's uniform, pushed her cleaning cart toward a corner, seemingly unnoticed. She had only been at the branch for a week, and already the whispers and snide remarks had become all too familiar. "This place is full of dead weight," Rachel Carter, the branch manager, said, sipping her latte. Her voice carried a biting edge that made the other managers chuckle in agreement. "Especially the janitors," Tom Bradley, her assistant manager, added, his tone dripping with disdain. "Honestly, why even bother paying them? If they had any real skills, they wouldn't be mopping floors." From behind the cart, Evelyn listened, her expression unreadable. They had no idea who she was. Evelyn Carter, the founder and CEO of the very company they worked for. The woman they ridiculed was the architect of the business empire they depended on. Evelyn Carter's journey had been anything but easy. Born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, in a working-class neighborhood, she grew up watching her parents grind tirelessly to make ends meet. Her mother worked as a janitor in a downtown office building, often returning home with aching knees and swollen hands. Her father, a school bus driver, woke up before dawn each day, yet he always found time to remind Evelyn and her siblings about the importance of integrity and perseverance. From a young age, Evelyn absorbed their lessons. She saw the strength it took for her parents to endure the daily struggles of their jobs while holding their heads high. It was in those moments that Evelyn's dreams began to take shape, not just to succeed, but to create a world where people like her parents would be respected and valued. Evelyn excelled academically, despite countless obstacles. While her classmates doubted her potential, she worked harder, fueled by their skepticism. After earning a scholarship to a prestigious university, she majored in business, determined to build something meaningful. Following graduation, Evelyn dove headfirst into the retail industry, climbing the corporate ladder from a warehouse worker to a store manager. Her experiences on the ground shaped her understanding of business and the people behind it. Years later, she founded Carter Collective, a retail company built on the principles of fairness, respect, and inclusivity. The company grew rapidly, with dozens of branches opening across the United States. However, as it expanded, Evelyn began to delegate more responsibilities to her regional managers, a decision she would later come to regret. Reports from the Brooklyn branch had become increasingly troubling. Employees described a toxic culture where lower-level workers, especially janitorial staff and cashiers, were mistreated and undervalued. The very principles Evelyn had built her company on seemed to have eroded under her watch. Her initial shock gave way to a deep sense of responsibility and guilt. How had she allowed this to happen? Determined to uncover the truth, Evelyn decided to take a drastic step. She would go undercover as a janitor at the Brooklyn branch. It was the only way to see the reality her employees faced, free from the filter of reports and middle management. Victor Simmons, her trusted advisor and longtime friend, had been the only one privy to her plan. "Are you sure about this, Evelyn?" Victor asked as they sat in her office late one evening. I need to see it for myself, Evelyn replied, her voice steady but resolute. I can't fix what I don't understand. If this is what it takes, then so be it. And so, Evelyn Carter became Evie, a new janitorial hire at the Brooklyn branch. The transformation was complete. Her tailored suits and heels were replaced by a plain blue uniform and sturdy sneakers. She tied her hair back and donned a cap, masking the poised businesswoman she truly was. Her first day was a lesson in humility. She scrubbed floors, cleaned restrooms, and emptied trash bins, all under the watchful eyes of employees who saw her as invisible, or worse, disposable. Rachel Carter and Tom Bradley led the charge, making their disdain for janitorial staff abundantly clear. She's slow, Rachel muttered loudly as Evelyn mopped the entranceway. We'll need to talk about cutting back on janitorial hours. Evelyn's grip on the mop tightened, but she said nothing. She couldn't. Not yet. The hostility wasn't confined to management. Even some coworkers seemed conditioned to ignore her. Evelyn noticed the weary resignation in their eyes, the way they kept their heads down to avoid drawing attention. It was clear that the toxic culture had taken root, creating an environment where dignity was sacrificed for survival. One evening, Evelyn sat alone in the break room, sipping water from a disposable cup. Across the room, Maria Gomez, a senior cashier with over a decade of experience, entered hesitantly, her shoulders hunched. Evelyn smiled warmly, but Maria quickly looked away, as if afraid to engage. She's just scared, Jamie Lewis, another janitor, whispered as she passed Evelyn. We all are. Evelyn's chest tightened. This wasn't just a branch in trouble. It was a family fractured by neglect and abuse. She vowed to herself, then and there, that she would uncover every crack in the system and rebuild it from the ground up. As the week progressed, Evelyn saw more than just a failing branch. She saw a reflection of the struggles her parents had faced, the battles she had fought, and the vision she had once held so dearly. The question wasn't whether she could fix it. The question was whether she could do it in time to save the people who still believed in Carter Collective's promise. Would Evelyn's mission succeed, or would she uncover truths too painful to mend? Evelyn Carter sat in her office at Carter Collective's headquarters in Manhattan, staring at the reports spread across her desk. The sleek, glass-walled room was quiet, save for the faint hum of the city outside. Normally, this was her haven, a space where she strategized and dreamed of ways to improve her company. Today, it felt suffocating. Each word on the page seemed to mock her vision. Employee dissatisfaction at the Brooklyn branch, reports of unfair treatment, toxic work culture. She leaned back in her chair, rubbing her temples. The words on the reports were clinical, devoid of the human stories she knew were behind them. Evelyn had built Carter Collective to be a beacon of fairness and opportunity, a company where every employee felt valued. How had it come to this? How had the principles she'd fought so hard to uphold been so thoroughly ignored? The memories came unbidden, rushing back like an old film reel. She saw herself as a little girl, sitting at the kitchen table in their small Detroit apartment. Her mother, still in her janitor's uniform, was scrubbing a stubborn stain out of her work gloves. Her father sat across from her, his school bus keys dangling from his belt loop. Despite their exhaustion, they always made time to teach Evelyn and her siblings the values of honesty, hard work, and respect. I don't care if you're mopping floors or running a company, her mother had said one evening, her voice firm, despite the weariness in her eyes. You treat people with dignity. Always. Evelyn had carried those words with her, letting them guide her every decision as she climbed the corporate ladder and eventually founded Carter Collective. But now, staring at these reports, She felt like she'd failed. Somewhere along the way, she had become so focused on expanding the company that she'd lost sight of its soul. The Brooklyn branch was just the latest symptom of a deeper problem. Evelyn stood abruptly, pacing the room. She couldn't sit back and let this continue. Her employees deserved better. Her parents' legacy deserved better. Later that evening, Evelyn met with Victor Simmons, her most trusted advisor and the company's chief operating officer. Victor had been with her since the early days of Carter Collective, and if anyone could help her navigate this crisis, it was him. Going undercover? Are you serious, Evelyn? Victor asked, his brow furrowed as he set his coffee cup down on her desk. You're the CEO of a billion-dollar company, not some investigative journalist. I'm completely serious, Evelyn replied, her voice steady. I can't fix this from behind a desk. I need to see it for myself. What they're going through, how the culture has deteriorated. I need to feel it. Victor sighed, leaning back in his chair. You realize how risky this is. If anyone finds out, it could undermine your credibility. The board will think you've lost your mind. They'll think I'm committed, Evelyn countered. This company is my life, Victor. If I don't do this, I'll never forgive myself. Victor studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. All right. If this is what you're set on, I'll support you. But you need a plan. You can't just walk in there and start mopping floors. Evelyn smiled faintly. That's where you come in. I'll need a backstory, a uniform, and absolute secrecy. No one at the Brooklyn branch can know who I really am. Not even Rachel Carter. Victor chuckled despite himself. She won't know what hit her. Over the next week, Evelyn prepared for her transformation. Gone were her tailored suits and designer heels, replaced by a plain blue janitor's uniform, sturdy sneakers, and a simple cap to hide her recognizable features. She rehearsed her backstory, a woman down on her luck, looking for honest work. Her new name was Evie Williams, a quiet, hard-working janitor with no interest in drawing attention. On the morning of her first day, Evelyn stood in front of her mirror, adjusting her cap. The reflection staring back at her was almost unrecognizable. For the first time in years, she felt nervous. Could she really pull this off? Would her employees see through the disguise? She took a deep breath, reminding herself why she was doing this. This isn't about you, she whispered to herself. This is about them. Evelyn arrived at the Brooklyn branch before sunrise, her cleaning cart rattling softly as she pushed it through the main hallway. The store was quiet, the faint scent of cleaning supplies lingering in the air. She took a moment to observe her surroundings, the glossy floors, the carefully arranged displays. This branch was one of the company's flagship locations, but beneath the polished surface, Evelyn knew there was rot. Her first interaction came with Rachel Carter, the branch manager. Rachel was in her early 30s, sharp-featured and impeccably dressed. She greeted Evelyn with a quick, dismissive glance. You must be the new janitor, Rachel said curtly. Keep out of the way. And don't forget to clean the break room. Someone spilled coffee yesterday, and it's still sticky. Yes, ma'am, Evelyn replied, keeping her tone meek. Rachel didn't even bother to acknowledge her response as she strode away, her heels clicking against the tile floor. As the day went on, Evelyn began to piece together the dynamics of the branch. Rachel ruled with an iron fist, while Tom Bradley, her assistant manager, followed her lead with unyielding loyalty. Together, they had created a culture of fear and intimidation. Lower-level employees like Maria Gomez, a senior cashier nearing retirement, and Kevin Harris, a young stock associate, bore the brunt of their disdain. In the break room, Evelyn overheard Rachel and Tom discussing cost-cutting measures. We're wasting so much money on janitorial staff, Rachel said, rolling her eyes. I mean, how hard is it to mop a floor? We could hire anyone off the street for half the price. Tom laughed. Don't even get me started on the cashiers. Maria's been here forever, and she's still slow as molasses. Honestly, we'd be better off without her. Evelyn clenched her fists, biting her tongue to keep from responding. She couldn't blow her cover. Not yet. But the anger simmered beneath the surface, fueling her determination. That evening, Evelyn returned to her small apartment in Brooklyn, her muscles aching from a day of physical labor. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her calloused hands. This was her parents' life, the quiet, thankless work that kept the world running. And yet, people like Rachel and Tom dismissed it as insignificant. Evelyn picked up her notebook, jotting down her observations. Every insult, every injustice, it all went into her growing dossier. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but she also knew she couldn't stop now. This was her chance to right the wrongs and restore the heart of Carter Collective. The morning light filtered through the tall glass windows of the Brooklyn branch, casting long shadows across the polished floors. Evelyn Carter, now fully immersed in her disguise as Evie Williams, adjusted her cap and pushed her cleaning cart into the store. It was a far cry from her office in Manhattan, with its expansive skyline views and plush carpeting. Here, the atmosphere was sterile, cold, a stark reflection of the culture she was about to uncover. Evelyn had barely stepped through the doors when she heard sharp heels clicking against the floor behind her. She turned to see Rachel Carter, the branch manager, striding toward her. Dressed in a perfectly tailored blazer and pencil skirt, Rachel exuded authority, though her expression was one of irritation rather than welcome. "You're the new janitor, right, Evie?" Rachel asked, her eyes scanning Evelyn's uniform with barely concealed disdain. "Yes, ma'am," Evelyn replied, keeping her tone polite but subdued. "Good. Here's the deal," Rachel said briskly, crossing her arms. "Stay out of the way. Clean the bathrooms first thing every morning. Then handle the break room and the main floor. And don't touch anything on the high-end displays. Got it?" Evelyn nodded, biting back the urge to respond. Rachel didn't wait for an acknowledgement, turning on her heel and walking away, without so much as a welcome. As Evelyn began her first task, scrubbing the already gleaming tile floors, she overheard snippets of conversation between Rachel and Tom Bradley, the assistant manager. "I don't get why we're paying so much for janitors," Tom said, leaning against the counter near the cash registers. "It's not like mopping a floor takes skill." Rachel smirked. "Exactly. Honestly, if I had my way, we'd outsource the whole department. They're a drain on resources." Evelyn kept her head down, her hands gripping the mop handle tightly. The sting of their words reminded her of the many stories her mother had told her, of being treated as invisible, as less than human, simply because of her job. As the morning wore on, Evelyn began to observe the other employees. Maria Gomez, the senior cashier, was stationed near the front registers. Her hands moved deftly as she rang up customers, her face lined with years of experience. Despite her efficiency, Evelyn noticed Rachel watching her from a distance, a critical eye scanning every movement. "Maria, could you be any slower?" Rachel called out, her voice cutting through the quiet hum of the store. "Customers don't want to stand here all day." Maria's cheeks flushed, but she nodded silently, her hands trembling slightly as she bagged the next customer's items. Evelyn felt a surge of anger, but forced herself to remain quiet. Later, in the stockroom, Evelyn encountered Kevin Harris, a young associate barely out of high school. He was stacking boxes of inventory, his movements quick but nervous. When Tom entered the room, Kevin stiffened, his shoulders tensing. "Kevin, If you're going to stack like that, you might as well not bother, Tom sneered. You're wasting time. Do it right, or don't do it at all. Kevin mumbled an apology, his face reddening as he adjusted the boxes. Evelyn could see the humiliation in his eyes, the same look she'd seen on Maria's face earlier. She made a mental note to speak with him later, to find out more about his experience. By midday, Evelyn had made her way to the break room to clean up after the morning rush. She was on her knees, scrubbing a stubborn coffee stain from the floor, when Rachel entered with a clipboard in hand. Without warning, Rachel stepped into the puddle Evelyn had just cleaned, splashing water onto the freshly mopped tiles. Evie, seriously? You can't even mop properly, Rachel snapped, looking down at her with a mixture of annoyance and disdain. Do it again. And this time, make sure it's dry before someone slips and sues us. Evelyn straightened, her jaw tightening. She wanted to tell Rachel exactly who she was, to demand the respect she deserved, not as Evelyn Carter, CEO, but as a human being. Instead, she nodded silently, picking up the mop and starting over. Rachel muttered something under her breath as she left the room, her heels clicking against the wet floor. Later that afternoon, Evelyn found herself in the break room again, this time during the employees' lunch hour. The small, cramped space was a stark contrast to the spacious, well-furnished lounge reserved for management. Maria sat at one end of the table, her shoulders slumped as she picked at a sandwich. Kevin sat across from her, staring at his phone. Evelyn joined them, her cleaning supplies tucked into the corner. Mind if I sit here? She asked. Maria looked up, surprised, and nodded. Of course. For a few moments, they ate in silence. Then Maria spoke, her voice low. It's not always like this, you know. It used to be better. Before Rachel? Evelyn guessed. Maria nodded. Yeah. Before her and Tom. They treat us like we're disposable, like we're not worth anything. Kevin chimed in, his voice barely above a whisper. I've only been here a few months, but I don't think I'll last much longer. It's hard to care about a job when your managers don't care about you. Evelyn listened intently, her heart heavy. She had built Carter Collective to be a place where people like Maria and Kevin could thrive, where hard work was rewarded and everyone was treated with respect. Somehow, that vision had been lost. As the day came to a close, Evelyn returned to her cleaning duties, her mind racing with everything she had observed. The disdain from management, the resignation among employees. It was worse than she had imagined. And yet, she also saw glimmers of hope. Maria's quiet strength, Kevin's determination to prove himself. These were the people who kept the store running, despite the obstacles they faced. Evelyn knew she had a long road ahead. Her first day as Evie Williams had given her a glimpse of the toxic culture she needed to dismantle. But it was just the beginning. She would continue to observe, to document, to understand every facet of the problem before taking action. As she pushed her cleaning cart toward the storage closet, Evelyn paused to look out at the store floor. Customers moved through the aisles, oblivious to the struggles of the employees around them. Evelyn clenched her fists, a steely resolve hardening within her. She had founded Carter Collective to make a difference, and she wasn't about to let that vision be destroyed. The second day of Evelyn's undercover mission began quietly, but the weight of the previous day's experiences lingered in her mind. She pushed her cleaning cart into the store once again, greeted only by the hum of fluorescent lights and the chatter of employees preparing for the morning rush. Evelyn felt a deep sense of purpose. Each interaction, each observation, brought her closer to uncovering the truth about what had gone wrong in her company. Evelyn's first task was the break room, where she encountered Jamie Lewis, a fellow janitor. Jamie was a petite woman in her mid-30s, with dark curls that framed her tired but kind face. She greeted Evelyn with a warm smile as she wiped down the counter. "You must be the new girl," Jamie said, her voice soft but cheerful. "I'm Jamie." "Evie," Evelyn replied, returning the smile. They worked in silence for a while, cleaning the tables and emptying trash cans. Eventually, Jamie broke the silence. "So, what do you think of this place so far?" Evelyn hesitated, unsure of how much to reveal. "It's different from what I expected." Jamie chuckled bitterly. "That's one way to put it. It's not the job, it's the people. Management treats us like we're invisible. Sometimes I wonder why I even bother." Evelyn looked at Jamie, noting the weariness in her eyes. "Why do you stay?" Jamie paused, her expression softening. "I've got 2 kids. This job pays the bills, even if it comes with a side of disrespect. And I guess I'm just used to it." Evelyn's heart ached at Jamie's words. She knew this wasn't just Jamie's story. It was the reality for many of her employees. Determined to learn more, Evelyn asked, "Has it always been like this?" Jamie shook her head. "It used to be better, before Rachel and Tom took over. Now, it's like they go out of their way to make us feel small." As the day progressed, Evelyn began to see the stark divide between upper management and lower-level employees. She overheard conversations that revealed just how deeply this divide was rooted. During her afternoon cleaning rounds, Evelyn passed by the conference room and caught Rachel and Tom deep in conversation. She quietly positioned herself nearby, pretending to clean the hallway. "I don't see why we're wasting money on team-building events for the janitors and cashiers," Rachel said, her tone dismissive. "They're not exactly the backbone of the company." Tom laughed. "Exactly. Let's focus on the managers, the ones who actually contribute to the bottom line." Evelyn clenched her fists, her grip tightening on the mop handle. Their words confirmed what she had suspected. The culture at the Brooklyn branch wasn't just toxic, it was deliberate. During lunch, Evelyn sat with Jamie again, along with Maria Gomez and Kevin Harris. The small group huddled around a cramped table in the break room, their voices low, to avoid drawing attention. Maria spoke first, her voice tinged with sadness. "Did you hear about the holiday party last year? They didn't even invite us, just the managers." Kevin nodded. "Yeah. And when I asked if we could at least get a small gathering for the rest of us, Tom told me to focus on my job instead of asking for perks I didn't earn." Jamie sighed. "It's not just the parties. They make it clear every day that we don't belong. Have you seen the manager's lounge? It's like a different world compared to this break room." Evelyn listened intently, her heart heavy with guilt. These were the people who made her company function, people she had promised to value and respect. Yet here they were, sharing stories of exclusion and belittlement. Later that afternoon, Evelyn was cleaning the sales floor when she noticed Rachel and Tom approaching. They were deep in discussion, their voices low but audible as they passed by. "We need to cut costs next quarter," Rachel said. "Start with the janitors and the older cashiers. They're not worth what we're paying them." Tom nodded, agreed. "And that new janitor, Evie, or whatever her name is, she's not exactly impressing me. Maybe we can start there." Evelyn froze, her stomach turning at their words. It wasn't just about efficiency or budgets. They were targeting people they deemed unworthy, without any regard for their contributions or circumstances. Despite the day's challenges, Evelyn found moments of hope and solidarity among her fellow employees. Jamie, Maria, and Kevin had formed a quiet bond, supporting each other in small but meaningful ways. At one point, Jamie noticed Evelyn struggling with a particularly stubborn stain on the floor. Without hesitation, she grabbed a mop and joined her. Teamwork makes the dream work, right? Jamie said with a grin. Evelyn smiled, grateful for the gesture. Right. Later, Maria offered Evelyn a piece of her sandwich during lunch, and Kevin shared a story about his dreams of becoming a graphic designer. These moments reminded Evelyn why she had started Carter Collective in the first place, to create a community where everyone felt valued. By the end of the day, Evelyn realized that while the management team was determined to maintain their toxic culture, the lower-level employees were just as determined to support each other. Their resilience and camaraderie gave her hope for the future. As she pushed her cleaning cart back to the storage closet, Evelyn made a silent promise to herself. She wouldn't let Rachel and Tom, or anyone else, destroy the values she had worked so hard to build. Change was coming, and it would start with her. Evelyn Carter arrived at the Brooklyn branch on her third day. As Evie prepared for the worst, each passing moment in her undercover role had reinforced the gravity of the situation. Today she resolved to delve even deeper into the daily struggles faced by her employees, hoping to gather irrefutable evidence of the toxic culture poisoning her company. Evelyn began her day cleaning the front entrance, a high-traffic area that demanded constant attention. As she bent down to scrub a stubborn scuff mark, Rachel Carter, the branch manager, walked past with her usual air of superiority. Without breaking stride, Rachel muttered, "Make sure you actually clean this time. I don't want customers thinking we're running a second-rate operation." Evelyn glanced up, her jaw tightening, as Rachel's heels clicked away. No acknowledgement, no greeting, just another reminder of how management viewed their frontline staff. Moments later, Tom Bradley, the assistant manager, approached with a clipboard. "Evie," he barked, "stop wasting time out here. The break room trash cans are overflowing, and it's starting to stink. Move it." Evelyn bit her tongue, nodding silently. She made her way to the break room, her heart heavy with frustration. Each interaction left her more determined to address the deep-seated disrespect plaguing her company. Later that morning, Evelyn's cleaning duties brought her to the checkout area, where Maria Gomez was working her usual register. Maria's calm demeanor was a stark contrast to the chaos of the morning rush. She handled customers with patience and care, her years of experience evident in her every action. As Evelyn wiped down a nearby counter, Rachel approached Maria with a clipboard in hand. "Maria," Rachel said sharply, "what is this?" She held up a receipt, her brow furrowed. Maria glanced at the receipt, her face flushing. "I'm sorry, Ms. Carter. It looks like I made a mistake with the discount code." Rachel rolled her eyes dramatically, loud enough for nearby customers to hear. "A mistake? Again? Maria, we can't afford these errors. Do you even check your work, or are you just guessing?" Evelyn froze, her hands gripping the cleaning rag tightly. She watched as Maria's shoulders slumped, her face a mixture of embarrassment and shame. The other cashiers glanced at each other, but remained silent, too afraid to intervene. "I'll be more careful," Maria murmured, her voice barely audible. "You'd better," Rachel snapped, spinning on her heel and walking away. Evelyn felt a surge of anger rise within her. She wanted to step in, to defend Maria, but she knew she had to remain undercover. Around midday, Evelyn moved to the stockroom, where she found Kevin Harris organizing inventory. The young stock associate was hunched over a pile of boxes, his movements quick but methodical. Evelyn admired his focus, noting the care he put into his work, despite the lack of recognition. Before long, Tom entered the stockroom, clipboard in hand. "Kevin," he called out, his tone clipped. "What's taking so long? We need these shelves stocked now." Kevin looked up, startled. "I'm almost done, Mr. Bradley. Just a few more boxes. Almost isn't good enough, Tom snapped, stepping closer. If you can't keep up, maybe this isn't the job for you. Evelyn watched as Kevin's face reddened, his hands trembling slightly as he returned to his task. Tom's words were loud enough to echo through the stockroom, ensuring everyone nearby heard the humiliation. I'll finish faster, Kevin said quietly, avoiding eye contact. See that you do, Tom replied before walking away. Evelyn felt her chest tighten as she saw the dejection in Kevin's posture. These were not isolated incidents. They were daily occurrences, a systematic stripping away of dignity and self-worth. As the day wore on, Evelyn found herself struggling to contain her emotions. Every interaction she witnessed confirmed what she had feared. Her company's values had been completely abandoned at the Brooklyn branch. Rachel and Tom weren't just poor leaders. They were bullies, using their positions of power to belittle and degrade their employees. Evelyn's undercover role required her to remain silent, but the weight of what she had seen was becoming unbearable. She made a mental note to document every detail, knowing that she would need undeniable evidence to bring about meaningful change. That afternoon, Evelyn entered the break room to empty the trash cans. Inside, she found Rachel and Tom sitting at a table, laughing loudly. They didn't acknowledge her presence as she worked quietly in the corner. Did you see Maria this morning? Rachel said, chuckling. She looked like she was about to cry. Honestly, if she can't handle a little criticism, she shouldn't be here. Tom smirked. Same with that kid, Kevin. Slow as molasses. I swear we could replace half this staff and no one would notice. Evelyn's hands clenched around the trash bag. She forced herself to remain calm, her mind racing with thoughts of how she would address their behavior when the time came. Despite the challenges of the day, Evelyn found small moments of hope. During a quiet moment in the stockroom, Kevin approached her. Thanks for helping out earlier, he said, his voice hesitant but sincere. It's nice to know someone's looking out for us. Evelyn smiled, her heart warming at his words. We've got to stick together, she replied. Later, Maria stopped Evelyn in the break room, offering her a cup of coffee. You're new, but you've already seen how things are around here, Maria said softly. Thank you for being kind. It means a lot. These interactions reminded Evelyn why she had started Carter Collective, to create a company where every employee felt valued and respected. She vowed to restore that vision, no matter how difficult the path ahead. As Evelyn pushed her cleaning cart toward the storage closet at the end of the day, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The mistreatment she had witnessed was unacceptable, but it had also given her the clarity she needed. Change wouldn't come easily, but she was ready to fight for the employees who had been overlooked and undervalued for far too long. Evelyn closed the storage closet door and leaned against it, her mind racing. She thought of Maria's quiet dignity, Kevin's resilience, and Jamie's determination to provide for her family. These were the people who made Carter Collective what it was. Not Rachel, not Tom. Taking a deep breath, Evelyn whispered to herself, "This ends now." Evelyn Carter's fourth day as Evie began with a renewed sense of purpose. Each moment she spent undercover strengthened her resolve to fight for the dignity and respect of her employees. Though the weight of what she had witnessed was heavy, Evelyn knew that even the smallest acts of resistance could ignite change. Evelyn arrived early at the Brooklyn branch, donning her janitorial uniform with a mix of determination and anticipation. As she pushed her cleaning cart down the hall, she noticed Maria Gomez setting up her register. The senior cashier's movements were slow but steady, her years of experience evident in her care for even the smallest tasks. "Good morning, Maria," Evelyn greeted, her tone warm. Maria glanced up, surprised. "Morning, Evie," she replied, her voice hesitant but grateful. Not many people bother to say that. Evelyn smiled. "Well, they should. You're the heart of this place." Maria's eyes glistened with emotion, but she quickly turned back to her work. Evelyn felt a pang of sadness, realizing how rare such simple kindness was for employees like Maria. Mid-morning, Evelyn was cleaning near the entrance when Rachel Carter stormed in, her heels clicking angrily against the tiled floor. She was on the phone, her voice sharp and irritated. "I don't care if the inventory is delayed," Rachel snapped. "Tell them to figure it out. And make sure those janitors clean the front windows. Yesterday's rain left streaks everywhere." Evelyn remained focused on her task, pretending not to hear, but Rachel's words were impossible to ignore. As Rachel ended the call, she turned her attention to Evelyn. "Evie," she barked, "those windows better be spotless by noon. I don't want to see a single smudge, got it?" "Yes, ma'am," Evelyn replied evenly, masking her frustration. Rachel sneered. "Good. Maybe you'll actually earn your paycheck today." Evelyn's fists clenched around the mop handle, but she kept her composure. The battle she was fighting required patience and precision. In the break room, Evelyn found Jamie Lewis wiping down tables. The young janitor looked exhausted, her uniform slightly rumpled. Evelyn set down her cleaning supplies and joined her. "Long morning?" Evelyn asked gently. Jamie sighed. "Every morning feels long around here. But what can you do?" "We can stick together," Evelyn said, with a reassuring smile. "If we don't look out for each other, who will?" Jamie glanced at Evelyn, her expression softening. "Thanks, Evie. It's nice to know someone has my back." As they worked side by side, Jamie shared stories of her struggles, being excluded from staff meetings, denied opportunities for advancement, and constantly belittled by Rachel and Tom. "They think we're invisible," Jamie said bitterly, "like we're not even people." Evelyn placed a hand on Jamie's shoulder. "They're wrong. You matter, Jamie. Don't let them make you forget that." Later that day, Evelyn was cleaning the break room when Rachel burst in, her expression stormy. "Jamie," Rachel barked, "what's taking so long with the restrooms? Customers are complaining, and I don't have time for your excuses." Jamie flinched, her face pale. "I was just finishing up in here. I'll get to it right away." "Not good enough," Rachel snapped. "If you can't handle basic tasks, maybe you're in the wrong job." Evelyn couldn't stay silent any longer. "She's doing her best," she said firmly, stepping between Rachel and Jamie. Rachel's eyes narrowed. "Excuse me? Who do you think you are?" "Just someone who knows hard work when I see it," Evelyn replied, her voice calm but resolute. "Jamie deserves respect, not ridicule." For a moment, Rachel looked taken aback. Then she scoffed. "Get back to work, Evie. This doesn't concern you." But Evelyn had made her point. Jamie stood a little taller as Rachel stormed out, her confidence bolstered by Evelyn's support. That afternoon, Evelyn overheard Rachel and Tom talking in the conference room. She quietly moved closer, pretending to clean nearby. "These layoffs are going to save us a fortune," Tom said smugly. "Cutting janitorial staff and senior employees like Maria will make a huge difference to the bottom line." Rachel chuckled. "And it's not like they'll fight back. People like Maria and Jamie are too scared to lose their jobs." Evelyn's heart sank. Their callousness was staggering, but it only strengthened her resolve. She needed more evidence, more ammunition, to expose their cruelty. At the end of the day, Evelyn found Maria and Kevin in the stockroom, organizing inventory. Both looked weary but determined. "Long day?" Evelyn asked, handing Maria a bottle of water. Maria nodded, her expression tired. Feels like they get longer every week. You're both doing incredible work, Evelyn said earnestly. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Kevin hesitated, then said, Thanks, Evie. That means a lot. As they continued working, Evelyn shared her own stories of resilience, anonymized but deeply personal. She wanted them to know they weren't alone, that their struggles mattered. The next morning, Rachel confronted Evelyn near the supply closet. You're awfully chatty for a janitor, she said, her tone icy. Don't forget your place. Evelyn met Rachel's gaze calmly. I haven't forgotten anything, ma'am. Rachel's eyes narrowed. Just remember, people like you are easy to replace. Evelyn smiled faintly. And people like you should be careful who they underestimate. Rachel huffed and walked away, but Evelyn could tell her words had struck a nerve. As the week drew to a close, Evelyn reflected on what she had accomplished. Though her acts of resistance had been small, they had made an impact. Maria, Kevin, and Jamie were beginning to see their worth, and Rachel and Tom were starting to realize that Evie wasn't as meek as she seemed. Evelyn knew the road ahead would be difficult, but she was more determined than ever to fight for the values she had built her company on. The time for subtlety was drawing to a close. Soon, she would reveal the truth and confront the toxic culture head-on. Evelyn Carter woke up on the 5th day of her undercover mission with a heavy heart. The Brooklyn branch had proven to be a microcosm of everything she feared her company had become. A place where people in power crushed the dignity of those beneath them. Yet, amidst her frustration, Evelyn found a quiet strength. She was nearing the moment when she would no longer simply observe injustice. She would confront it. The day began with a storm brewing inside the store. The atmosphere was tense as rumors spread among the staff about impending layoffs. Employees whispered in hushed tones during their breaks, their eyes filled with worry. Evelyn moved through the store, listening carefully to the snippets of conversation. I heard they're targeting the janitors first, Jamie murmured to Maria in the break room. And they're saying Maria's next, because she's too slow. Can you believe it? Maria gave a weary sigh, her hands trembling as she held her coffee cup. I've been here for 15 years. To them, it means nothing. Evelyn's stomach churned. The very foundation of her company, built on valuing every individual's contribution, was crumbling before her eyes. She knew she had to act soon, but she needed one more piece of evidence to confront the toxic management team. Later that morning, Evelyn found herself in the break room when Tom Bradley stormed in, his voice dripping with disdain. He zeroed in on Maria, who was sitting quietly in the corner. Maria, he barked, why are you always so slow? Do you realize how much you're dragging the team down? Maria looked up, startled. I'm doing my best, sir, she stammered. Your best isn't good enough, Tom sneered. Maybe it's time we found someone who actually knows how to work. Evelyn couldn't hold back any longer. She stood up, her voice calm but firm. That's enough, Tom. Tom turned, his eyes narrowing as he took in the sight of Evelyn. Excuse me? Who do you think you are? I'm someone who knows that belittling employees doesn't make you a better leader. Evelyn replied evenly. Maybe you should focus on supporting your team instead of tearing them down. The room fell silent. Maria's eyes widened in shock, while Jamie looked on with a mix of awe and fear. Tom, however, was less impressed. You'd better watch your mouth, Evie, he said coldly. Janitors like you are a dime a dozen. Evelyn met his glare without flinching. And managers like you are the reason companies fail. Tom scoffed and stormed out, but Evelyn knew her words had struck a nerve. That afternoon, Evelyn overheard Rachel and Tom talking in Rachel's office. She pretended to mop the hallway just outside, her ears straining to catch every word. "These layoffs are going to make things so much easier," Rachel said, her tone smug. "No more dead weight slowing us down." Tom chuckled. "And Maria? She's as good as gone. I'm sick of looking at her tired old face." Evelyn's hands tightened around the mop handle. The callousness of their words was infuriating, but it was exactly what she needed to hear. She slipped away quietly, her mind racing with plans for the confrontation to come. The tipping point came later that evening. Evelyn was cleaning near the checkout area when Rachel walked up to Kevin Harris, the young stock associate, and began berating him for a minor mistake. "Do you even know what you're doing?" Rachel snapped. "If you can't handle this job, maybe you should find one more suited to your skill level, like flipping burgers." Kevin's face turned red, his hands shaking as he tried to explain. I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll fix it right away." "You'd better," Rachel said, her voice icy, "because I'm not wasting my time on incompetence." Evelyn had heard enough. She stepped forward, her voice steady but filled with authority. "That's enough, Rachel." Rachel turned, her expression a mix of surprise and irritation. "What now, Evie? Don't you have a floor to mop?" "I do," Evelyn said, her eyes blazing. "But I couldn't stand by and watch you treat Kevin like that. He's a hard worker, and he deserves respect." Rachel's lips curled into a sneer. "And what would a janitor know about respect?" "More than you, apparently," Evelyn shot back. "Maybe if you spent less time tearing people down, you'd actually earn some." For a moment, Rachel seemed at a loss for words. Then she stormed off, muttering under her breath. As the store quieted down for the night, Evelyn found herself alone in the break room, her mind racing. She had seen enough, heard enough. The time for subtlety was over. The next day, she would reveal her true identity and confront Rachel and Tom in front of the entire management team. But as she sat there, Evelyn's thoughts turned to Maria, Jamie, Kevin, and all the other employees who had endured so much. They were the reason she had started Carter Collective, and they were the reason she would fight to restore its values. Taking a deep breath, Evelyn whispered to herself, "Tomorrow, everything changes." The morning sunlight spilled through the windows of the Brooklyn branch, casting long, sharp shadows across the gleaming floors. Evelyn Carter stood in her janitorial uniform one last time, her heart pounding with anticipation. Today was the day she would confront the toxic leadership that had poisoned her company. She had seen enough, heard enough, and felt enough to know that change wasn't just necessary, it was urgent. The management team gathered in the conference room for their weekly meeting, oblivious to the storm brewing in their midst. Rachel Carter, the branch manager, sat at the head of the table, her air of authority palpable. Tom Bradley, her assistant, leaned back in his chair, a smug smirk playing on his lips as he glanced over the week's reports. The other managers exchanged casual banter, their laughter tinged with an arrogance that made Evelyn's blood boil. Evelyn pushed her cleaning cart down the hallway, her grip tightening on the handle. She had deliberately scheduled this moment to coincide with the management meeting, ensuring that every key player would be present. As she approached the conference room, her heart beat faster, not with fear, but with determination. Evelyn stepped into the room, her presence barely acknowledged by the managers engrossed in their discussion. She positioned her cart near the corner of the room and began wiping the table closest to the door, her ears tuned to the conversation. "We need to cut costs immediately," Rachel declared, her voice sharp. "Starting with the janitorial staff. Honestly, do we even need this many of them?" Tom chuckled. "Exactly. A few less mops and buckets around here wouldn't hurt anyone. The room erupted in laughter, but Evelyn had heard enough. She straightened, took a deep breath, and walked toward the center of the room. The laughter died down as heads turned, confusion spreading across the faces of the managers. "Excuse me," Evelyn said, her voice calm but commanding. "I think we need to have a serious conversation about this branch's leadership." Rachel frowned, her brow furrowing in irritation. "And who do you think you are to interrupt this meeting?" Evelyn met her gaze without flinching. "I'm Evelyn Carter, founder and CEO of Carter Collective." The room fell silent. The air grew thick with tension as the weight of her words sank in. Rachel's face drained of color, her confident facade crumbling. Tom's smirk vanished, replaced by a look of stunned disbelief. You're Evelyn Carter?" Rachel stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," Evelyn said firmly. "And I've been working undercover as a janitor for the past week, observing how this branch operates." Evelyn turned her attention to Rachel, her voice steady but laced with anger. "Rachel, I trusted you to uphold the values this company was built on: fairness, respect, and integrity. Instead, I've witnessed you mocking and belittling employees, treating them as if they're disposable." Rachel opened her mouth to respond, but Evelyn raised a hand to silence her. "Do not interrupt me. Your actions have not only undermined the morale of this team, but have also betrayed the trust I placed in you." Turning to Tom, Evelyn's eyes narrowed. "And you, Tom, your arrogance and disdain for the very people who keep this store running is appalling. I watched you humiliate Maria in front of her colleagues, belittle Kevin for trying his best, and treat Jamie like she's invisible. That ends today." Tom shifted uncomfortably in his seat, unable to meet her gaze. The other managers sat frozen, their expressions a mix of fear and guilt. Evelyn took a step back, her voice rising with conviction. This company was built on the belief that every employee, no matter their position, deserves respect. The janitors, cashiers, and stock associates you've ridiculed are the backbone of Carter Collective. Without them, none of this would be possible." She paused, letting her words sink in. "You mock the people who work tirelessly to keep this branch running smoothly. But let me make one thing clear. They are the heart of this company, and anyone who cannot see their value has no place here." The silence in the room was deafening. Rachel and Tom exchanged nervous glances, their bravado completely shattered. Evelyn turned to the group as a whole. "Effective immediately, Rachel and Tom are suspended pending a full investigation into their conduct. The same applies to anyone else who has participated in creating this toxic culture." Several managers gasped, but Evelyn continued without hesitation. "I will personally oversee a complete audit of this branch to ensure that every employee is treated with the respect they deserve. Changes are coming, and they will be swift and decisive." After the meeting, Evelyn gathered the lower-level employees in the break room. Jamie, Maria, Kevin, and several others looked at her with a mix of confusions and hope. "I know the past few months have been difficult," Evelyn began, her tone gentle but firm. "I've seen firsthand how hard you work and how much you care about this store. You deserve better. Better leadership, better treatment, and better opportunities." Tears welled up in Maria's eyes as she whispered, "Thank you, Miss Carter." Evelyn smiled warmly. "No, Maria. Thank you for your dedication, your resilience, and your belief in this company, even when it failed to believe in you." Word of Evelyn's actions spread quickly throughout the company. Employees across the Carter Collective network were inspired by her courage and commitment to restoring the company's values. For the first time in months, there was a sense of hope, a belief that change was not only possible, but inevitable. As Evelyn left the Brooklyn branch that evening, she felt a profound sense of accomplishment. This was just the beginning of her fight to reclaim the soul of her company, but she knew she was on the right path. Her employees were not just workers, they were her family, and she would do whatever it took to protect them. The Brooklyn branch buzzed with a mix of curiosity and uncertainty after Evelyn Carter's explosive revelation. Employees whispered in break rooms, behind shelves, and even at the registers. Her presence had electrified the air, and while many felt a surge of hope, others, especially those in management, were left grappling with the fallout. Evelyn, however, wasted no time basking in the aftermath. There was work to be done. The day after the management meeting, Evelyn arrived at the branch at dawn. Clad in a sharp blazer, her commanding presence sent a clear signal. She was not there to observe anymore. She was there to lead. The first order of business was ensuring that Rachel Carter and Tom Bradley were removed from the building. Evelyn summoned them both to a private meeting in her temporary office. The tension was palpable as they entered, their earlier arrogance replaced by visible unease. Rachel's usual confident stride was hesitant, and Tom avoided eye contact altogether. "I've made my decision," Evelyn began, her tone firm but measured. "You're both suspended immediately. I've assigned a team from headquarters to investigate your conduct and determine the appropriate next steps." Rachel's eyes widened in shock. "Ms. Carter, This is not up for discussion," Evelyn interrupted, her voice like steel. "You have not only failed in your duties, but have actively contributed to a culture of toxicity and disrespect. Your actions have hurt this branch and its people. I cannot allow that to continue." Tom attempted to interject. "I was just following us." Evelyn raised a hand, silencing him. "Spare me your excuses. You both had the power to make this branch a place of respect and inclusion. Instead, you chose to tear people down. Leave your office keys with HR on your way out." The room fell silent as the weight of her words settled over them. Rachel and Tom rose reluctantly, their faces pale with humiliation, and left without another word. With the immediate threats removed, Evelyn turned her focus to the employees who had borne the brunt of the toxic culture. She scheduled a meeting with the entire staff, ensuring every voice could be heard. The break room, too small to accommodate everyone, overflowed with people eager to see what the future held. Evelyn stood at the front of the room, her presence commanding but approachable. "I want to start by saying this. I am deeply sorry," she began, her voice resonating with sincerity. "I failed you. I trusted the wrong people and allowed a culture to develop that goes against everything this company stands for. But that ends now." She paused, letting the gravity of her words sink in. "From today forward, things will be different. I am here to listen, to learn, and to make the changes you deserve." The room erupted into applause, a sound that sent a lump to Evelyn's throat. She hadn't expected such an outpouring of support so soon, but it only strengthened her resolve. Evelyn's next step was launching a comprehensive audit of the Brooklyn branch. She brought in a team of trusted employees from headquarters, led by Jessica Lee, a seasoned HR executive known for her empathy and integrity. The team spent hours reviewing records, interviewing employees, and observing daily operations. Evelyn personally sat in on many of the interviews, listening intently as employees like Maria Gomez and Kevin Harris shared their experiences. Maria's voice trembled as she recounted years of belittlement from Rachel. "She made me feel like I was nothing," Maria said, her eyes glistening with tears. I've been here for over a decade, and not once did she treat me with respect." Evelyn reached across the table, placing a reassuring hand on Maria's. "That ends now," she promised. "Your dedication and hard work are seen and valued. You deserve better, and I will make sure you get it." Kevin, the young stock associate, spoke hesitantly, his words tinged with lingering fear. "I've always wanted to move up, but every time I tried to talk to Tom about opportunities, he'd laugh and say, 'I should be grateful I even have a job.'" Evelyn's jaw tightened. "No one should ever feel like they don't have a future here. I'm going to make sure we create clear pathways for advancement, so people like you can thrive." As the audit progressed, Evelyn began implementing immediate changes. She reinstated bonuses that had been cut under Rachel's leadership and ensured janitorial and cashier staff received the same benefits as other employees. She also introduced anonymous feedback boxes, encouraging employees to voice their concerns without fear of retaliation. One morning, Evelyn gathered a small group of employees for a brainstorming session. Jamie Lewis, the janitor who had shared her struggles so openly, hesitated to speak at first, but eventually found her voice. "I think it would help if managers worked alongside us occasionally," Jamie suggested. "Not permanently, but just enough to understand what we go through." Evelyn smiled warmly. "That's an excellent idea, Jamie. I'll make it part of the new training program for all managers." Evelyn also took time to connect personally with the employees. She joined Maria for lunch one day, sitting beside her in the break room and listening as Maria shared stories about her family and her dreams for the future. "I always wanted to go back to school," Maria admitted, "but life got in the way." "Well, it's never too late," Evelyn said, her tone encouraging. "I'm going to look into partnerships with local schools to provide scholarships for employees who want to pursue further education, and I'd be honored to help you take that step." Maria's eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Miss Carter. That means more than I can say." The changes Evelyn implemented began to take root. Employees who had once walked with their heads down started holding them high. Jamie and Kevin, in particular, seemed to bloom under the new atmosphere of respect and opportunity. Maria, too, carried herself with renewed confidence, her resilience shining through. Evelyn knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There were still deeper issues to address, and the culture shift she envisioned would take time. But for the first time in months, she felt a sense of hope, not just for the Brooklyn branch, but for the entire Carter Collective. As she left the branch one evening, Evelyn paused to look back at the building. The road to this moment had been rocky, but it was worth every step. She was determined to ensure that Carter Collective lived up to its name, a place where everyone felt valued and included. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, a message from Jessica Lee. Audit progressing smoothly. Excited for the next steps. Evelyn smiled. The next steps would be critical, but she was ready for them. She had reclaimed her company's soul, and now it was time to ensure that it stayed true to its values. For every employee, in every branch, Evelyn Carter stood at the heart of her company's Brooklyn branch, surveying the energy that had begun to shift since her bold intervention. But she knew that this single branch was only the surface of a much deeper issue. The cracks she had seen here were likely a symptom of a broader problem spreading across Carter Collective, a rot that had quietly eroded the values she'd built the company on. Her mission wasn't over. In fact, it had only just begun. Back in her office at headquarters, Evelyn sifted through reports, complaints, and employee feedback from various branches across the country. Patterns began to emerge. Similar stories of mistreatment, toxic management practices, and the erosion of the company's core values appeared again and again. The Brooklyn branch, as appalling as its culture had been, was not an anomaly. Jessica Lee, the HR executive Evelyn had brought in to lead the audit, entered the office with a stack of papers. "These are the preliminary findings," Jessica said, her voice steady but somber. "The issues aren't just limited to Brooklyn. We've identified at least 5 other branches with similar complaints. The same toxic behaviors, disrespect, exclusion, and exploitation, seem to be systemic." Evelyn's heart sank, but she masked her disappointment with resolve. "Then we tackle it head on," she said firmly. "This isn't just about fixing Brooklyn. It's about saving the soul of Carter Collective." Jessica nodded, her admiration for Evelyn's determination evident. "I've already started drafting a plan, but we'll need buy-in from every level of leadership. Not everyone will welcome the changes." Evelyn leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. Resistance was inevitable, but the company's survival and the dignity of its employees depended on her ability to push through the opposition. That night, as Evelyn pored over the data, her thoughts drifted to her early days, building Carter Collective. She remembered the long nights and the sacrifices, but most of all, she remembered the people who had stood by her. Back then, she knew every employee by name. She'd been present in every store, talking to the janitors, the cashiers, and the stock associates. Those connections had been the foundation of her success. One memory stood out: a snowy December evening years ago, when she had helped a cashier named Martha, who had been working double shifts to afford Christmas gifts for her children. Evelyn had stayed late to help her balance the register, and they'd shared a laugh over spilled coins. "You care," Martha had said, her voice full of gratitude. "That's why we believe in this place." Evelyn clenched her fists, the memory bittersweet. Somehow, as the company grew, she had lost that personal touch, and with it, the culture she had fought so hard to create had slipped away. "Never again," she whispered to herself. To implement the sweeping changes she envisioned, Evelyn needed a team she could trust. Jessica Lee was already a key ally, but the task was too monumental for one person alone. Enter Michael Green, a seasoned consultant, known for his expertise in corporate culture transformation. Michael had a reputation for being direct and uncompromising, qualities Evelyn admired. When she explained her vision during their first meeting, he didn't hesitate. "You're fighting an uphill battle," Michael said, "but it's one worth fighting. Let's do this." Evelyn also brought in Marcus Hill, a dynamic and empathetic operations director who had spent years working his way up from entry-level positions. Marcus understood the struggles of lower-level employees firsthand and was passionate about creating equitable workplaces. Together, the trio began drafting what they called the Employee First Initiative, a comprehensive plan to overhaul the company's culture. The initiative focused on 3 pillars: respect, inclusion, and opportunity. Evelyn and her team hit the road, visiting branches across the country to observe the dynamics firsthand. At each location, Evelyn made it a point to speak directly with the employees, bypassing the usual layers of management. In Chicago, she met Angela, a single mother working as a cashier, who shared her struggles with inflexible schedules. "They act like we're robots," Angela said, her voice trembling. "Like we don't have lives outside of this place." In Dallas, a janitor named Luis recounted how his supervisor routinely berated him in front of customers. "It's humiliating," Luis admitted, his eyes downcast. "But I need this job, so I stay quiet." Each story fueled Evelyn's resolve. She saw herself in Angela and Luis, and in so many others who simply wanted to work with dignity. As expected, not everyone welcomed Evelyn's initiative. Some senior managers argued that her changes would hurt productivity, and profitability. "We're running a business, not a charity," one regional director scoffed during a heated meeting. Evelyn's response was sharp. "Respecting and valuing employees isn't charity. It's good business. If you can't see that, maybe you're not the right fit for this company." The room fell silent, the director sinking back in his chair. Even within the headquarters, Evelyn faced resistance. Some board members worried that the changes might scare off investors. Evelyn met with them one-on-one, presenting data that showed companies with strong, inclusive cultures performed better in the long term. Slowly but surely, she began to win them over. Back at headquarters, Jessica and Marcus worked tirelessly to finalize the new policy framework. It included mandatory training programs on workplace respect, a revamped benefits package for lower-level employees, and clear pathways for career advancement. One of the most innovative elements was the introduction of Perspective Days, where managers would spend a day shadowing lower-level employees to understand their challenges. Evelyn personally reviewed every detail, ensuring the policies reflected the values she held dear. "This isn't just about words on paper," she told her team. "It's about creating real, lasting change." The journey took its toll on Evelyn. Long days turned into sleepless nights, and the weight of the company's future pressed heavily on her shoulders. But she found solace in the support of her team and the gratitude of employees, who began to see glimmers of hope. One evening, as Evelyn prepared to leave the office, she received a handwritten note from Maria Gomez. "Thank you for seeing us," it read. "You've given us more than hope. You've given us a voice." Evelyn sat in her car, the note clutched in her hand, tears streaming down her face. It was a reminder of why she had started this journey in the first place. By the end of the chapter, the groundwork for change had been laid. Evelyn and her team had identified the roots of the company's cultural issues and begun addressing them head-on. But the real test was yet to come, implementing the changes and ensuring they took hold across every branch. As Evelyn closed her office door late one night, she glanced at the photo on her desk, a picture of her younger self, standing in front of the first Carter Collective store. She smiled, a spark of determination in her eyes. The road ahead would be long, but she was ready. Evelyn Carter stood at the helm of a company-wide transformation. The task ahead was monumental, but as she gazed at the finalized draft of the Employee First Initiative, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't just about policy changes. It was about rewriting the culture of Carter Collective, rebuilding trust, and ensuring that every employee, from janitors to senior managers, felt valued and respected. Evelyn wasted no time rolling out the first phase of reforms. At a packed press conference held in Carter Collective's headquarters, she addressed employees and the media, outlining her vision for the company's future. Her voice was steady, her resolve palpable. "This isn't just about fixing problems," she declared. "It's about setting a new standard for what a workplace should be. A place where everyone, regardless of their role, is treated with dignity and respect." Jessica Lee and Marcus Hill stood by her side as she unveiled key elements of the initiative. Respect and inclusivity training. Mandatory workshops for all employees, starting with managers, to foster a culture of mutual respect. Employee Voice Program. A confidential reporting system for workplace concerns, directly monitored by an independent committee. Career advancement opportunities. Clear, achievable pathways for promotion, supported by training and mentorship programs. Wellness enhancements. Expanded benefits, including additional sick leave, mental health support, and flexible scheduling options. The announcement was met with cautious optimism. Employees were hopeful, but some remained skeptical. Change, Evelyn knew, would take time. Within the upper echelons of management, however, Evelyn's reforms were met with resistance. During a high-stakes leadership meeting, tensions ran high. Senior managers voiced concerns about the potential impact on profitability and operational efficiency. "This all sounds great in theory," argued Donald Mitchell, a regional director with decades of experience. "But these changes are going to cost us. Do you really think we can afford to prioritize employee satisfaction over the bottom line?" Evelyn met his gaze, her voice unwavering. "Donald, if we can't afford to respect our employees, then we can't afford to stay in business. A company's success isn't measured by profits alone. It's measured by the people who make those profits possible." The room fell silent. Donald, clearly taken aback, sat back in his chair, his expression unreadable. Evelyn pressed on, her voice firm but calm. "This isn't up for debate. These changes are non-negotiable. If you can't support them, I suggest you reconsider your place here." The first workshops began the following week, starting with the Brooklyn branch. Evelyn insisted on attending the inaugural session, observing from the back of the room as a facilitator led managers through interactive exercises and discussions. One activity required participants to step into the shoes of lower-level employees, simulating the challenges they faced on a daily basis. Rachel Carter, the former branch manager, visibly struggled with the exercise, her discomfort evident. But as the session progressed, something shifted. By the end of the workshop, Rachel approached Evelyn with an uncharacteristic humility. "I didn't realize how much I had taken for granted," Rachel admitted. "It's eye-opening." Evelyn nodded, her expression softening. "Change starts with acknowledgement, Rachel. Now it's up to you to put what you've learned into action." As the workshops expanded to other branches, stories of transformation began to emerge. At the Chicago branch, Angela, the cashier who had once felt like a cog in the machine, shared her experience with a new mentorship program. Paired with a senior manager, she began developing skills that would eventually lead to a promotion. In Dallas, Luis, the janitor who had endured public humiliation, reported a noticeable shift in his supervisor's behavior. "It's like they finally see me," he said, his voice tinged with cautious optimism. "Not just as someone who cleans, but as a person." Evelyn made it a point to visit as many branches as possible, sitting down with employees over coffee and listening to their stories. These interactions fueled her determination and reinforced her belief that the changes she was implementing were not only necessary, but transformative. Despite the positive momentum, not everything went smoothly. At the Los Angeles branch, several managers openly resisted the reforms, dismissing the workshops as a waste of time. One manager, Christopher Blake, even went so far as to publicly criticize the initiative during a staff meeting. "This is ridiculous," Christopher sneered. "We're spending money on feel-good nonsense while ignoring what really matters, sales." When Evelyn heard about Christopher's remarks, she arranged a meeting with him. Her tone was calm but firm as she addressed his concerns. "Christopher, I understand your perspective, but you need to understand mine. A toxic work environment doesn't just hurt employees. It hurts the company's performance. If you can't align with our values, you're welcome to seek opportunities elsewhere." Christopher's defiance wavered under Evelyn's unyielding gaze. By the end of the meeting, he reluctantly agreed to participate in the training program, though Evelyn made a mental note to monitor his progress closely. To foster open communication, Evelyn hosted a series of town hall meetings, inviting employees from all levels to share their thoughts and experiences. These gatherings became a cornerstone of the company's transformation. At one such meeting, Maria Gomez, the senior cashier from Brooklyn, stood up to speak. Her voice trembled at first, but she quickly found her confidence. I've worked here for over a decade, and for the first time, I feel like my voice matters. Thank you, Ms. Carter, for giving us hope." The room erupted in applause, and Evelyn felt a lump form in her throat. Moments like this reminded her why she had embarked on this journey. As the reforms gained traction, the company began to see tangible results. Employee satisfaction scores improved, turnover rates decreased, and productivity rose. Customers even noticed the difference, praising the friendly and attentive service they received in stores. Evelyn's vision was becoming a reality, but she knew the work was far from over. True change required constant vigilance and a commitment to the values that had guided her from the start. Late one night, Evelyn sat alone in her office, reviewing the latest progress reports. A framed photograph of her parents caught her eye. She picked it up, tracing her fingers over the image. "This is for you," she whispered, "for everything you taught me about hard work and integrity." She set the photo down and glanced at the clock. It was past midnight, but she felt a renewed sense of energy. There was still so much to do, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was on the right path. The hum of conversation filled the Carter Collective headquarters as employees gathered for the highly anticipated town hall meeting. Evelyn Carter stood backstage, her heart steady but her mind racing. Today was critical. The reforms had begun to take root, but she needed the company's employees to feel not just included, but empowered to carry the vision forward. As Evelyn stepped onto the stage, the room quieted. She looked out over the crowd. Faces of all backgrounds, ages, and roles stared back at her, a sea of people united by their shared experiences. Her voice was warm, yet resolute. "I know the past few months haven't been easy," Evelyn began. "Change rarely is, but I stand here today, not as your CEO, but as your ally. Together, we're rebuilding Carter Collective into something extraordinary, a place where everyone feels respected and valued." Applause rippled through the room. Evelyn gestured toward a screen behind her, where images of employees from across the company flashed. Cashiers, janitors, managers, and stock associates, all smiling as they worked. "This," Evelyn continued, her voice gaining strength, "is the heart of Carter Collective. Not policies, not profits, people. Each and every one of you is essential to our success." As part of the meeting, Evelyn invited employees to share their personal experiences since the reforms began. The first to step forward was Kevin Harris, the young stock associate from the Brooklyn branch. Nervously clutching the microphone, Kevin glanced at Evelyn, who gave him an encouraging nod. "I used to feel invisible here," Kevin admitted, his voice shaking slightly, "like no one cared about what I did. But after the changes, things are different. My manager actually asks for my input now, and for the first time, I feel like my work matters." The room erupted into applause, and Kevin beamed, his confidence growing. Next, Maria Gomez, the senior cashier, took the stage. Her voice was steady, but the emotion in her words was unmistakable. "I've been with this company for over a decade," Maria said, "and I've seen it at its best and its worst. What's happening now? It's the best. Thank you, Ms. Carter, for reminding us that we're more than just employees. We're family." Tears glistened in Evelyn's eyes as she embraced Maria. The audience cheered, their applause a testament to the power of recognition and respect. Despite the positive momentum, Evelyn knew there were still challenges to overcome. After the town hall, she held a smaller meeting with a group of employees who had expressed skepticism about the reforms. One of them, a cashier named Riley, spoke candidly. "It's great that things are improving, but some of us are still waiting to see if this is real. We've been burned before." Evelyn nodded, appreciating Riley's honesty. I understand your hesitation, she replied. Change takes time, and trust is earned. But I promise you, this is just the beginning. I'm committed to making these changes permanent. To reinforce her commitment, Evelyn announced the creations of an Employee Advocacy Council, a group composed of representatives from all levels of the company. The council would meet monthly with senior leadership to ensure employee voices were heard and acted upon. Evelyn made it a point to visit branches regularly, not as a CEO inspecting operations, but as a leader connecting with her team. At one such visit to the Chicago branch, she joined the janitorial staff during their break. Sitting on a worn bench in the staff room, Jamie Lewis, the janitor she had befriended during her undercover mission, was stunned to see Evelyn there. "You don't have to do this, Ms. Carter," Jamie said, her voice tinged with awe. "I do," Evelyn replied firmly. "Because if I don't, how can I expect anyone else to?" The two women shared a heartfelt conversation, during which Evelyn thanked Jamie for her resilience and courage. Word of these personal interactions spread quickly, bolstering employee morale and strengthening their trust in Evelyn's leadership. The reforms began to show measurable results. Employee satisfaction scores climbed steadily, and customer feedback highlighted the noticeable improvements in service quality. At a corporate leadership summit, Evelyn shared these findings with the management team. "People don't just work harder when they're treated well," she explained. "They care more. They innovate. They stay." Even Donald Mitchell, the once resistant regional director, had to admit the changes were working. "I was wrong," he confessed during a break. "I didn't think this would make a difference, but it's changed everything." Evelyn smiled, knowing that earning Donald's support was a significant victory. As the momentum continued to build, Evelyn hosted a company-wide celebration to honor the employees who had been instrumental in driving the transformation. The event, held at a spacious venue in downtown Chicago, was attended by hundreds of employees, from janitors to senior executives. Evelyn took the stage, her heart swelling with pride. "Tonight, we celebrate not just our progress, but the people who made it possible," she said. "Maria, Kevin, Jamie, your stories inspire us all. And to everyone here, thank you for believing in this vision." The highlight of the evening came when Evelyn presented Maria with the Heart of the Collective Award, recognizing her decades of service and unwavering dedication. As Maria accepted the award, tears streaming down her face, the audience gave her a standing ovation. The celebration marked a turning point for Carter Collective. Employees who had once doubted the reforms now saw them as a genuine effort to create lasting change. The sense of unity and purpose within the company was palpable. In the weeks that followed, Evelyn worked tirelessly to ensure the reforms became ingrained in the company's culture. She collaborated closely with Jessica Lee to refine training programs, introduced anonymous feedback systems, and implemented regular check-ins with employees at all levels. Late one evening, Evelyn sat in her office, reviewing the latest employee feedback reports. The results were overwhelmingly positive, but she knew the journey was far from over. Change wasn't a destination. It was a continuous process. As she gazed out the window, the city lights twinkling below, Evelyn felt a sense of peace. Carter Collective was becoming the company she had always envisioned, a place where people mattered, where respect wasn't just a policy, but a way of life. She picked up her phone and called Jamie. "I just wanted to say thank you," Evelyn said, "for everything." Jamie's voice was warm with gratitude. "No, Ms. Carter. Thank you for seeing us." Evelyn smiled, her heart full. This was just the beginning, and she was ready for whatever came next. The crisp morning air carried an undercurrent of tension, as Evelyn Carter arrived at Carter Collective's headquarters. Today marked the start of the company-wide summit, an unprecedented gathering that would decide the future of the reforms. For weeks, a small but vocal coalition of senior managers had been rallying against the changes, arguing that the new policies threatened the company's financial stability and traditional structure. Inside the sleek conference room, Evelyn could feel the energy shift as she entered. At one end of the long mahogany table sat Donald Mitchell, the regional director, flanked by other high-ranking managers who had resisted the reforms from the start. Their expressions ranged from polite skepticism to outright defiance. At the other end of the table were Evelyn's allies, Jessica Lee, the progressive HR executive, Kevin Harris, now a representative of the Employee Advocacy Council, and Maria Gomez, whose promotion to senior cashier had become a symbol of the company's new direction. Evelyn took her seat at the head of the table, her posture poised and commanding. "Thank you all for being here," she began, her voice calm but firm. "Today, we're not just discussing policies. We're defining the kind of company we want Carter Collective to be." As Evelyn outlined the progress made since the reforms were implemented, rising employee satisfaction scores, improved customer feedback, and decreased turnover rates, Donald Mitchell leaned forward, his expression skeptical. "With all due respect, Ms. Carter," he said, his tone measured but pointed, "those numbers don't tell the whole story. Yes, morale might be up, but at what cost? We've seen a decline in short-term profits, and frankly, some of these policies, like extended breaks and increased training budgets, feel like unnecessary expenses." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the opposing side of the table. Evelyn met Donald's gaze, unflinching. "Short-term sacrifices for long-term gains," she countered. "What we're building isn't just a company, it's a culture. And culture is what sustains growth, not quarterly profits." Jessica Lee chimed in, her voice steady and persuasive. "The data shows that happier employees are more productive. And let's not forget the ethical imperative here. Treating people with dignity isn't just good business, it's the right thing to do." The tension in the room was palpable, but Evelyn's allies began to speak up. Kevin Harris, though nervous, stood and addressed the room. "I've seen the changes firsthand," he said. "Before the reforms, I felt invisible. Now I feel like I matter. And when people feel valued, they work harder. Isn't that what we all want?" Maria Gomez followed, her voice tinged with emotion. "I've been with this company for over a decade, and I've seen the good and the bad. These reforms have brought back the Carter Collective I joined, a place where people care about each other. That's worth fighting for." Their words resonated with many in the room, softening some of the opposition's hard stances. But Donald and his closest allies remained unmoved. As the debate intensified, Donald stood, his voice rising. "This isn't about dignity or morale. It's about survival. If we don't prioritize profits, there won't be a company left to reform." Evelyn rose to her feet, her presence commanding the room. "Survival? Carter Collective has survived because of the very people you dismiss as expendable. The janitors who keep our stores clean, the cashiers who greet our customers with a smile, the stock associates who work tirelessly behind the scenes, they are the backbone of this company, and it's time we treated them as such." Her words hung in the air, heavy with conviction. For a moment, the room was silent. Then Jessica added, "If we continue down the old path, we'll lose more than profits. We'll lose our people, our reputation, and our purpose." To break the impasse, Evelyn proposed a bold solution, a company-wide vote. Every employee, from janitors to executives, would have a say in whether the reforms should be implemented permanently. The decision would be made democratically, reflecting the collective will of the entire organization. The announcement sent shockwaves through the room. Donald protested, calling it unprecedented and risky. But Evelyn held her ground. "This company belongs to everyone," she said. "Let them decide." Over the next 2 weeks, voting stations were set up across all branches, and employees were encouraged to participate. Evelyn toured the branches, engaging with staff and answering their questions. She listened intently, reinforcing her commitment to transparency and inclusivity. On the day the results were announced, the atmosphere was electric. Employees gathered in break rooms, offices, and conference halls, watching as the numbers were revealed. When the final tally came in, the message was clear. The employees overwhelmingly supported the reforms. Cheers erupted across the company. In the Brooklyn branch, Kevin and Maria embraced, tears streaming down their faces. Jamie Lewis, now a respected team leader, called Evelyn to thank her for giving the employees a voice. "You didn't just change policies," Jamie said. "You changed lives." Back at headquarters, Evelyn addressed the management team. "This vote wasn't just about the reforms," she said. "It was about trust. The trust between leadership and employees, between colleagues, between people. And today, we proved that trust can lead to extraordinary things." Even Donald Mitchell, though reluctant, conceded. "I still have my doubts," he admitted, "but I can't deny the impact these changes have had. You've got my support, for now." Evelyn smiled, knowing that winning over skeptics like Donald was just as important as rallying her allies. The victory marked a turning point for Carter Collective. With the reforms now a permanent part of the company's culture, Evelyn turned her focus to ensuring their sustainability. She worked closely with Jessica to develop comprehensive training programs, mentorship initiatives, and metrics to track the impact of the changes. Evelyn also launched a Voices of the Collective campaign, showcasing stories of employees like Kevin, Maria, and Jamie. The campaign not only celebrated their contributions, but also reinforced the company's commitment to valuing every individual. Late one evening, Evelyn sat in her office, reflecting on the journey so far. The road had been arduous, filled with resistance and doubt, but the rewards were undeniable. Carter Collective was stronger, not just as a business, but as a community. As she prepared to leave, Evelyn glanced at a photo on her desk, a snapshot from the town hall meeting, showing her surrounded by smiling employees. It was a reminder of why she had fought so hard, and why she would continue to fight. With renewed determination, Evelyn stepped out into the night, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Carter Collective was no longer just a company. It was a family. And families, Evelyn knew, could overcome anything. The days following the company-wide vote brought a renewed sense of purpose to Carter Collective. Employees, from the janitors to the managers, walked into work with a newfound confidence. The reforms had not only been approved, but embraced, and now the real work of rebuilding trust began. Evelyn Carter, ever the visionary, knew that earning the hearts and minds of her employees required more than policy changes. It demanded consistent action and heartfelt accountability. The first step in rebuilding trust was ensuring that the promises of reform were swiftly implemented. Evelyn wasted no time. Maria Gomez, the seasoned cashier who had endured years of belittlement, was officially promoted to a senior role, overseeing training for new hires. Her gentle demeanor and years of experience made her a perfect fit to mentor employees, especially those who had once felt invisible like herself. Kevin Harris, the young stock associate who had found his voice during the reforms, was given a leadership position in the Employee Advocacy Council. His journey from being undervalued to becoming a respected voice for change became a beacon of hope for others. Across all branches, Evelyn rolled out new initiatives that reflected the company's renewed focus on equity and inclusion. Bonuses and benefits, which had been cut under previous management, were reinstated. A new mentorship program paired lower-level employees with senior staff, fostering relationships that broke down barriers and nurtured mutual respect. As the changes unfolded, Evelyn found herself reflecting deeply on her own journey. One evening, as she sorted through old photographs, she stumbled upon a picture of her parents standing proudly in front of their modest Detroit home. The memory of their unwavering resilience fueled her determination. She had inherited their work ethic and values, but she also realized she had grown distant from the struggles that had once shaped her. In an effort to reconnect with her roots, Evelyn began visiting employees in their day-to-day environments. She joined janitors during early morning cleaning shifts, stocked shelves alongside associates, and even worked the cash register during a weekend rush. These moments weren't just symbolic, they were transformative. Employees who had once seen Evelyn as an untouchable CEO now saw her as one of them, someone who understood and respected their contributions. One of the most impactful initiatives Evelyn introduced was a series of town hall meetings held across the company's branches. These meetings provided a platform for employees to voice their thoughts, share their experiences, and suggest improvements without fear of reprisal. At the first town hall in Brooklyn, Maria Gomez stood up to speak. "For years, I felt like just another cog in the machine," she began, her voice steady but emotional. "But today, I feel like I'm part of something bigger, something meaningful. Thank you, Miss Carter, for reminding us that we matter." Her words were met with a standing ovation, and tears welled up in Evelyn's eyes. She responded with a sincerity that touched every person in the room. "Maria," she said, "it's not just me. It's all of us coming together to rebuild what this company stands for. You inspire me, and I'm grateful for you." These town halls became a cornerstone of the new Carter Collective culture. Employees who had long felt silenced now had a voice, and their stories of perseverance and hope created a ripple effect of positivity throughout the company. Rebuilding trust wasn't without its challenges. Some managers who had resisted the reforms initially struggled to adapt to the new culture. Evelyn, ever patient but firm, made it clear that there was no room for old habits. She implemented mandatory training sessions focused on empathy, active listening, and collaborative leadership. Jessica Lee, the HR executive, led these sessions with a blend of professionalism and warmth, using real-life stories to drive home the importance of respect and dignity. One such session featured Jamie Lewis, the janitor who had been mocked and dismissed by the previous management. Standing before a room of managers, Jamie shared her story with quiet strength. "I've been cleaning floors for 15 years, she said. "But I've always known my worth. It's just that no one else seemed to see it. Until now." The room fell silent, and for the first time, some of the managers truly understood the impact of their past behavior. One senior manager approached Jamie afterward, tears in her eyes, and apologized. "I didn't realize how blind I'd been," she admitted. "Thank you for opening my eyes." Evelyn knew that for the company to thrive, the changes had to go beyond surface-level fixes. She worked closely with Jessica to design a set of core values that every employee, regardless of rank, would be expected to uphold. These values, respect, integrity, collaboration, and empowerment, were printed on posters and displayed in every break room. But more importantly, they were woven into the fabric of the company's operations. Performance reviews now included metrics for teamwork and respect, ensuring that leaders were held accountable not just for their results, but for how they treated their teams. An anonymous reporting system allowed employees to flag any instances of misconduct, with swift and transparent investigations to follow. As the months passed, the impact of these changes became increasingly visible. Employee turnover rates plummeted, productivity soared, and customer satisfaction reached new heights. To celebrate these achievements, Evelyn organized a company-wide appreciation day. Each branch hosted its own event, complete with food, music, and heartfelt speeches. At the Brooklyn branch, Maria and Kevin were the stars of the day. Maria, now a mentor to dozens of new hires, shared her gratitude for the opportunity to give back. Kevin, his confidence radiating, spoke about how the company's changes had transformed his outlook on life. Evelyn, attending the event in person, presented them with plaques recognizing their contributions. "You are the heart of this company," she said, "and it's because of people like you that Carter Collective will continue to thrive." As the sun set on the Appreciation Day, Evelyn took a moment to reflect. Standing outside the Brooklyn branch, she watched as employees mingled, laughed, and celebrated together. It was a stark contrast to the tense, divided atmosphere she had encountered months ago. Jessica Lee joined her, a satisfied smile on her face. "You did it," she said. "We did it," Evelyn corrected, her tone filled with gratitude. "And we're just getting started." For Evelyn, rebuilding trust wasn't just about fixing the company's past mistakes. It was about creating a future where every employee felt valued and empowered. As she looked out at the smiling faces, she knew that Carter Collective was more than just a workplace. It was a family, and families, as Evelyn had learned, were worth fighting for. The transformation of Carter Collective wasn't just evident in its operations. It radiated through the employees who walked its halls. Evelyn Carter's relentless pursuit of fairness and respect had rejuvenated a company that was once on the brink of losing its soul. Now, the air was filled with optimism, and the upcoming annual conference was poised to showcase everything that the company had achieved. The annual conference was unlike any other in Carter Collective's history. For years, these gatherings had been reserved for senior managers to boast about sales figures and expansion plans. This year, Evelyn turned it into a celebration of the people who made those achievements possible. The employees. The venue, a sleek convention center in Manhattan, buzzed with activity. Employees from every branch across the country arrived with a mixture of excitement and curiosity. The theme of the event, emblazoned across a massive banner in the main hall, read, "Together we thrive." Evelyn had spent weeks preparing for this day. Her speeches were carefully crafted, not just to inspire, but to honor those who had endured and persevered. The highlight of the day would be a special segment dedicated to recognizing individuals who embodied the company's renewed values. Maria Gomez and Kevin Harris were at the heart of this celebration. For Maria, the moment felt surreal. Standing backstage in a new blazer, gifted by her daughter, she clutched the plaque engraved with her name. It wasn't just an award. It was validation of her years of dedication and resilience. As Evelyn introduced Maria to the stage, the crowd erupted in applause. Evelyn's voice carried both pride and sincerity as she spoke. Maria Gomez is more than a senior cashier. She is a cornerstone of this company, a mentor to so many, and a reminder that true strength lies in compassion. Maria, her voice trembling but steady, shared her journey. "For years, I thought my work went unnoticed," she began. "But today, I see that every effort, no matter how small, matters. I'm grateful to be part of a company that finally sees us for who we are, not just for what we do." The applause was deafening, and Maria wiped away tears as she stepped off the stage, greeted by hugs from her colleagues. Next was Kevin's turn. The once timid stock associate now walked with confidence, his head held high. Evelyn's introduction highlighted Kevin's growth and his newfound role as a leader in the Employee Advocacy Council. Kevin Harris has shown us what's possible when we invest in our people, Evelyn said. He's not just a voice for change. He's proof that change is worth fighting for. Kevin's speech was short, but powerful. I used to feel like I didn't belong, he admitted. But now, I know that my voice matters. Thank you, Ms. Carter, for reminding us that we all have a place here. In a surprise announcement, Evelyn called Jamie Lewis to the stage. Jamie, who had always avoided the spotlight, looked stunned as her name echoed through the hall. The janitor who had quietly endured years of mistreatment was now being celebrated before hundreds of her peers. Jamie Lewis represents the heart of Carter Collective, Evelyn said, her voice filled with emotion. Her resilience, her courage, and her unwavering commitment to this company inspire us all. As Jamie took the microphone, the audience fell silent. Her voice, though soft, carried a powerful message. I never thought I'd see a day like this, she said. To all the janitors, cashiers, and stock associates out there, your work matters. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. The standing ovation that followed was a testament to the impact Jamie had made. As she left the stage, Evelyn embraced her, whispering, "You're a hero, Jamie." The final segment of the conference was Evelyn's keynote address. Dressed in a sharp navy suit, she stood at the podium, her presence commanding yet approachable. The room quieted as she began. When I founded Carter Collective, I envisioned a place where everyone, regardless of their role, felt valued, she said. Somewhere along the way, we lost sight of that vision. But today, we've reclaimed it. And this is only the beginning. Evelyn's speech touched on the company's journey, the challenges they had faced, and the triumphs that followed. She acknowledged the mistakes of the past, but focused on the hope of the future. Progress isn't about perfection, she continued. It's about persistence. It's about learning from our failures and striving to do better every day. Together, we can build a company that sets the standard for respect, fairness, and inclusion. Her closing words were met with thunderous applause. Employees, managers, and executives alike rose to their feet, united by a shared sense of purpose. After the conference concluded, Evelyn took a moment to reflect. Standing in a quiet corner of the venue, she watched as employees mingled, laughed, and celebrated. It was a stark contrast to the tense, divided atmosphere she had encountered months ago. Jessica Lee approached, a satisfied smile on her face. "You've done something incredible here," she said. "This isn't just a company anymore. It's a community." Evelyn nodded, her heart swelling with pride. "It's all of us," she replied. "Every single person here played a part." As the night wound down, Evelyn made her way to the Brooklyn branch. It was quiet now. The lights dimmed, but she found comfort in its familiar walls. Standing outside, she spotted Maria and Kevin chatting with a group of new hires. Maria's voice carried a tone of mentorship, while Kevin's enthusiasm lit up the group. Evelyn smiled, her heart full. This was the future she had fought for, a company where every employee, regardless of their position, could thrive. She thought of her parents, whose sacrifices had paved the way for her journey, and silently thanked them. In the stillness of the evening, Evelyn made a promise to herself to continue leading with integrity, to honor the voices of her employees, and to ensure that Carter Collective remained a place of opportunity and respect for generations to come. The sun was setting behind the Brooklyn skyline, as Evelyn Carter stood outside the Carter Collective branch that had been the turning point of her journey. The evening glow bathed the store in a golden light, casting long shadows over the street. Evelyn felt a sense of closure, but also a renewed sense of purpose. This was not just the end of a difficult chapter. It was the beginning of a brighter future for the company she had built from the ground up. Leaning against a bench outside the store, Evelyn let her mind drift back to the day she had walked into this very branch, disguised as a janitor. The memories were vivid. The disdainful glances, the biting remarks, the overwhelming sense of injustice. But as painful as those experiences had been, they had ignited a fire in her. That fire had led to sweeping reforms, reshaped the company's culture, and brought Carter Collective back to its founding values. The journey hadn't been easy. Evelyn had faced resistance from senior managers, skepticism from employees, and her own moments of doubt. But the victories outweighed the struggles. Seeing employees like Maria Gomez and Kevin Harris thrive reminded her why she had fought so hard. She had not just saved a company, she had given it a soul. Carter Collective's transformation had garnered national attention. Business magazines and leadership blogs hailed it as a case study in ethical leadership and organizational reform. Evelyn's decision to go undercover had become a symbol of humility and determination, inspiring leaders across industries. Reporters frequently sought interviews with Evelyn, eager to learn about her methods and motivations. During one such interview, Evelyn shared a profound insight. "Leadership isn't about power or authority," she said. "It's about service. A leader's true strength lies in their ability to uplift others." Her words resonated far and wide. Universities invited her to speak at business ethics seminars, and she even received offers to collaborate on research about workplace culture. Though flattered, Evelyn remained focused on her company, ensuring that Carter Collective continued to lead by example. Amidst the accolades, Evelyn embarked on a deeply personal project, writing her memoir, titled Grounded in Integrity: The Carter Collective Story. The book chronicled her journey from a working-class upbringing to becoming a successful CEO. It delved into the challenges she faced as an African-American woman in the business world, the cultural transformation of her company, and the lessons she had learned along the way. The book became an instant bestseller. Readers were captivated by Evelyn's honesty and vulnerability. She didn't shy away from discussing her missteps or the pain of discovering the toxic culture within her own company. Instead, she used those moments as teaching points, offering practical advice to other leaders. In one chapter, Evelyn wrote, "True leadership requires the courage to confront uncomfortable truths. It's not about being perfect. It's about striving to do better every single day." Under Evelyn's leadership, Carter Collective continued to evolve. New policies ensured that every employee had access to fair wages, opportunities for growth, and a safe work environment. The Employee Advocacy Council, led by Kevin Harris, became a vital part of the company's structure, giving lower-level employees a platform to voice their concerns and ideas. Maria Gomez, now a senior mentor in the company, played a key role in training new hires. Her sessions were not just about job skills, they were about fostering a sense of belonging and pride in their work. Maria often shared her own story, reminding employees that their contributions mattered. Jamie Lewis, the janitor who had become a symbol of resilience, was now part of a special task force dedicated to maintaining inclusivity and respect within the company. Her voice carried weight, and employees admired her for her unwavering commitment to fairness. The changes weren't just internal. Customers noticed a difference too. The stores felt warmer, the staff more engaged. Sales increased, not just because of better products, but because of the positive energy that radiated from the employees. People wanted to support a company that valued its workers. Carter Collective's transformation inspired other businesses to reevaluate their practices. Leaders across industries began implementing similar reforms, citing Evelyn's story as their motivation. Conferences on corporate culture featured panels discussing the Carter model, and Evelyn often found herself invited to speak alongside other influential leaders. One of Evelyn's proudest moments came during a national business summit. She was joined on stage by Maria, Kevin, and Jamie, who shared their experiences and insights with the audience. Their stories brought the room to its feet in applause, a powerful testament to the impact of Evelyn's vision. As Carter Collective grew, Evelyn made a conscious effort to stay connected to its roots. She regularly visited branches, speaking with employees and listening to their feedback. Each visit reminded her of the company's humble beginnings and the values that had guided her from day one. During one such visit to a new branch in Los Angeles, Evelyn met a young cashier named Maya. Nervous but determined, Maya shared her dream of one day becoming a store manager. Evelyn saw a spark in her, reminiscent of her own younger self. "Maya," Evelyn said, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "This company is built on dreams like yours. Work hard, believe in yourself, and never let anyone tell you what you can't do." Back at the Brooklyn branch, Evelyn watched as Maria trained a group of new hires. Nearby, Kevin was organizing a community event to give back to the neighborhood. Jamie stood with a clipboard, coordinating a volunteer cleanup effort. Evelyn felt a swell of pride. This was her legacy. Not the profits or the accolades, but the people. Carter Collective was no longer just a business. It was a family, united by shared values and a commitment to making a difference. As she turned to leave, a young employee approached her hesitantly. "Ms. Carter," he said, "I just wanted to thank you. Working here has given me hope." Evelyn smiled, her eyes brimming with emotion. "The thanks go to you," she replied. "You're the reason we're here." Walking away, Evelyn felt the weight of the past lift from her shoulders. She knew the road ahead would still have challenges, but she was ready. With every step, she carried the lessons of her journey and the promise of a brighter future for everyone at Carter Collective. As Evelyn walked away from the Carter Collective Brooklyn branch, her heart full of hope and her mission clear, her story reminded us all of the power of resilience, humility, and the courage to stand up for what's right. The journey of transforming not just a company, but countless lives, speaks to the difference one person can make when they refuse to accept injustice. What do you think? Have you ever experienced or witnessed a workplace where someone's voice made a difference? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your story. And if this tale of leadership and redemption moved you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. There's so much more to come. Stories of change, perseverance, and the unyielding human spirit. Join us for the next chapter, and let's continue to uncover stories that inspire us all. See you soon.